Welcome to the Animal Law Podcast. This is Marianne Sullivan. My guest this week is once again Christopher Berry of the Animal Legal Defense Fund, and I am so excited about this interview. It involves a California case entitled Carew SPCA versus Anthony. And this case involves a successful effort to close down a backyard breeder puppy mill kind of situation, which is like really, really great news. But there are also some hugely important implications for this case, which go way beyond the case itself, and in which the Carew SPCA, which has a really interesting origin story that Christopher will tell us about, uses an old but virtually never used California statute that allows humane societies to bring cases to court to protect animals who are being subject to illegal treatment. What? You got to hear this. This could definitely be the start of something big for animal law, and you are going to be so glad you didn't miss this episode. Before we get to that, I'd just like to take a moment and ask you for your support for Our Hen House, which is, of course, the not-for-profit that produces this podcast along with the Our Hen House podcast. And if you can help out, please go to ourhenhouse.org/donate. You can always join our flock for $10 a month or $100 a year. You can also just make whatever donation that you are able to or comfortable with. And if you can't afford it right now, we understand. Our supporters always know, I think, that they are helping to provide animal-friendly media for themselves, but also for others who can't afford right now to contribute. And thank you so much to all who do. And of course, if you haven't yet done so, please check out the Our Hen House podcast, which I co-host along with Jasmine Singer. A couple of recent episodes that might be of particular interest include episode 578 with amazing New York State Senator and passionate animal activist Jabari Brisport, represents a district in New York City, and episode 579 featuring Angela Grimes of Born for USA. And she spoke about many of the challenges facing wild animals, which of course are many, but we particularly focused on the links between wet markets that sell wild animals and the risks of pandemics, like this one that is ruining all of our lives. And the fact that this is not more of a thing, that we can't do that anymore, just boggles my mind. I assume it does yours as well. All right, let's get to the interview because you're going to love it. Christopher Berry is a managing attorney in the Animal Legal Defense Fund's litigation program, where he oversees strategic impact litigation to protect the lives and advance the interests of animals. He will be joining me right after this. I want to tell you about an amazing service for anybody who's practicing animal law or interested in animal law. The Brooks Animal Law Digest is a premier, free online publication dedicated to offering in-depth and up-to-date coverage on today's most important animal law and policy issues. Published weekly as a collaborative effort with Harvard Law School's Animal Law and Policy program, the Digest is a Brooks Institute service to the animal protection community. It can be like having a full-time lawyer on your staff researching and reporting to you on U.S. current legal developments related to animal protection issues. This digest is a resource for anyone interested in learning more about the field of animal law, either as a high-level overview of weekly developments for those who are focused on specific work, but nevertheless want to stay aware of other actions, or as a jumping-off point for digging into a specific current issue in the field. Features include allowing you to compile updates by category, search by key terms, and each issue contains links to background materials that will orient the reader around that specific issue. There are weekly highlights as well as quarterly summaries. You can subscribe to the Brooks Animal Law Digest at thebrooksinstitute.org. Welcome to the welcome back to the Animal Law Podcast, Christopher.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me back.
I'm super excited to talk about this case. The case is interesting in and of itself, but, maybe not the most complex case we've ever covered, but lots of interesting issues. But the implications of it are staggering, just staggering. So that's what I really want to talk about, because it's the way you brought this case that really got me so interested in this. So first of all, let's start with the facts, as all good lawyers do. Can you just tell us about this Operation California Carolina Dogs?
I think the best way to describe it is it's essentially like a puppy mill and a hoarding situation sort of combined into one. It's a breeding operation in a residential at least has been in a residential area, breeding this breed of dogs called Carolina dogs. They've been called, I think, like the American Dingo. I'm a dog person. I've actually never heard of this breed
I've
before.
never heard of them either.
Yeah, they call it like the American Dingo. I guess it's like a southern, Carolina
Right.
breed that had kind of become feral from, I think maybe from domestic dogs, or like they kind of this feral dog breed, and then they've been domesticated, and this operation, a woman in the Bay Area of California has been breeding them at our house. Unfortunately, for the dogs and neighbors and others, it's a situation where the dogs have been running at large. They're including occasionally biting people. There's nuisance barking, complaints of smells, and because of the nuisance barking and the dogs getting out and the smells, animal control had been called over a period of years, frequently visiting the property and documenting, at times dozens of dogs. I think there was one animal control log saying that they thought there were more than 50 dogs at this residential property, right? This is just a house, sort of like a suburb kind of a feel to it, with a bunch of, neighbors that also live there. And so that's essentially the backdrop for all of this.
And all right, this may be a little bit unusual as puppy mills go, which are, you don't hear about dogs running free in puppy mills. So it's a little bit more casual in operation, but probably not that unbelievably unusual. So how did it come to your attention as something that you should be paying attention to?
I mean, we got wind of this because, the neighbors were upset. This was a nuisance, right? Imagine flies, imagine smelling dog urine and dog feces, hearing the barking, worrying about the dogs getting out, like barking at you when you walk by. Even though animal control was going out and there was, some semblance of law enforcement going on, they never escalated it beyond kind of like warnings. And I think at one point there was a kind of like a cease and desist letter, maybe a paltry fine. I can't remember offhand, but long story short, they never really like went like full out to stop this nuisance. And that's how we caught wind of it, because after a few years of putting up with that, you start talking to people and hearing things and going beyond just animal control and local law enforcement services.
Yeah, I did find the history of law enforcement a little shocking, that they had been out there so many times. There have been so many complaints, and they had responded to the complaints, and then they just didn't do anything about it. It just kept going. So I guess that's not that unusual in dog cases.
It was a resource allocation problem, to the best of my understanding, from digging into the public records and everything, and sort of talking with people on the ground there. So this is Vallejo, California. There's a lot of other issues there, besides, someone who has, too many dogs on their property. Lots of issues. And if you're going to bring a case against someone, like a real law enforcement action for an injunction, or, there were some local ordinances being violated, I think that could have misdemeanor charges to them as well. But if you're going to prosecute a case like that, it takes an enormous amount of resources to litigate a case, even a simple case, because you have to kind of budget out time and money, potentially for trial to do it, and evidence gathering and legal memos and all this stuff. And so they just didn't have the resources to bring this in front of a judge and really leverage the full force of the law to stop this illegal operation.
Yeah, clearly, just one of the fundamental problems in animal law is that even where laws exist, and sometimes they do, sometimes legislatures pass laws and make everybody feel better, but enforcement is hard, and it's not a priority, and nobody else can bring a case. But obviously, that brings up standing, and that's the first issue that would arise in anybody's mind when you think about this case. So who is the plaintiff in this case? And let's talk a little bit about standing.
Yeah, well, actually, you said something interesting, so I want to